Welcome back to Worldview. Now, John Jackson's rejoining us for part two of our interview. Now, we got it right a few months ago, right here on this show. John told us about all the ways in which the U.S. government spies on the U.S. and everyone around the globe using their internet and all of their very popular programs. Now, when we were talking to John, this was about the recent disclosure by Edward Snowden and the fact that he chose to do his interview with Glenn Greenwald in Hong Kong, and the fact that John is also based in Hong Kong. Now, John, you mentioned that this guy Snowden is indeed a marked man now, and the internet chatter that you've been reading says that the CIA and the NSA will not even try to take him alive. Indeed, you said something that RT.com were listening to some federal agents in Dulles Airport. Talk a little bit about what was happening there, please.
The article that I read on RT.com was a couple of guys in Dulles Airport. You know, your video phones take video. Well, your smartphones make videos, and that he and his friend overheard four guys at Dulles talking about it loudly, unabashedly, how they were never going to take him alive, and recorded that information. So for me, it's secondhand, but I got it from RT.com.
Indeed, Edward Snowden himself said, you cannot come forward against the world's most important intelligence agencies, and if they want you, they're going to get you. You also cannot collect large paychecks against these public interests, but with all these abuses, because the situation is only going to grow and get worse with each generation. Talk a little bit about how advanced these new generations of programs are going to be going forward in the future, and how this is growing exponentially.
Actually, recording the information itself does not require any super technology. They've been able to do that for years. That's just standard technology. What's not standard or well known is that they've been developing artificial intelligence programs to sort through the information, very much like the TV program Person of Interest. That's not science fiction.
Well, you know, this data is collected each year, and it continues to grow, and the storage increases. Simply, if you're going to fall under suspicion, don't you run the risk of literally a government with this much power and this much data having the ability to just say, I suspect this guy Dennis Campbell, I've got this data from him, I've got a history of him, so I can go back and I can look at every decision he's ever made to derive suspicion from an innocent life and somehow turn me into a wrongdoer. Talk a little bit about what that means.
Well, I think that's not actually the right question. The right question is, do you really trust your government that much with all that information? Do you really think that everyone that works for the United States government never commits any crime, that these people are all pure, law-abiding citizens and never, ever do anything corrupt or illegal?
That is a much better question, actually, John. Yeah. Now, the Snowden and you have both worried about nothing changing at all. And specifically, he talks about, and you did in segment one, about the government's effort to unilaterally gain greater control over American and global society. And in the interview with Glenn Greenwald, he publicly worried about whether we, as the people, as the populace, can force our elected representatives to take a stand for our interest, or will it only get worse?
Well, I've heard comments both ways. And I also hear comments now and then about revolution in America. So, you know, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
He said also that if you have a new leader, the only thing that restricts that person is policy versus law. And if that new leader were to see a threat, he can run to the people just as George W. Bush did and said, well, we need more authority and power. And suddenly we're in a totalitarian society. What's your reaction to that?
Well, of course, that's what a song is talking about. You need transparency. You can't have the news media controlled by an oligarchy and expect that you're not going to get bombarded with propaganda and have these people creating an imaginary society for the constituency. You have to have a completely open, transparent, uncensored news media. Anything less than that, and you're looking at tyranny.
We're talking with John Jackson of Jackson Research in Hong Kong on Worldview with Dennis Campbell. Now, John, I never thought I would agree with either Rand Paul, the senator from Tennessee, or from Kentucky, excuse me, or the shock jock Alex Jones. But some of what they've had to say on this subject is dead on, if it wasn't just for the rest of the crazy stuff they say. Now, Ron Paul wants to sue the NSA and the CIA and introduce legislation, saying that this data gathering is illegal and unconstitutional, violates the Fourth Amendment. And then to make matters more interesting, last weekend we had the Bilderberg group here in the UK, and they've railed against this gang. That they say that the protesters outside railed against the group, saying that they've known what's been going on for all along, yet nobody listened to them. So they didn't get a great reception here. We've got Rand Paul and we've got Alex Jones all on the same side. What is going on?
If someone like Alex Jones is standing up waving a flag, shouting, the emperor has no clothes, the only thing the government can do is say that he's a radical and he's into conspiracy theory and that he's crazy. It's just the other side of the coin.
But, I mean, when you start talking about suing the CIA and passing legislation, is there any chance legislation like that could move forward?
I would rather not speculate on what may or may not happen. It's possible that it's already too late. There's not anything anybody can do about it.
Fair point. And then we have the corporate media that, that's controlled by that 1% that filters out all of this, and not much of it is making it into the U.S. mainstream. When you mentioned RT, Global Research, others that are more global focused, they're talking about what does not show up there. You also mentioned that your wife has translated Chinese media for you. What more can you add about this particular scenario and where we're headed?
Basically, I think the American people have received a wake-up call. And this is going to be their last chance to do anything about it. Maybe it's too late already, but if they don't take action to get their government under control, then they're finished.
Well, truer words. John, it's been a pleasure having you again on the program here.
Thanks for having me.
John Jackson is CEO of Jackson Research in Hong Kong. He focuses his day job on magnets and defeatable security switches, as well as internet security. And you can find him and more about him on the website www.jrmagnetics.com. You're watching Worldview with Dennis Campbell. Stay right here.